InsightAI, powered by InsightJam.
All right, Doug Shannon, welcome back to our InsightAI podcast. Thanks for being here again.
Yeah, happy to be here, and we dive into it and have a good time talking about it.
Well, what I wanted to talk about was I wanted to get your take on open versus closed AI systems. So I know that there was a huge release from Meta, Llama 3.
3.1.
Llama 3.1. Right. And I know that there is this AI bro debate over whether we're going to go open AI or closed AI. The irony of all that is that the closed AI system is called open AI.
Yeah.
And
they used to be more open, but now they're closed again.
Well, we'll get into it. So, you know, Zuckerberg is getting all kinds of love in spaces. I don't think that he always got love, because he has decided to go full blown open source. Llama is free for you to download onto your devices that can handle it, and away you go. So just break it down a little bit about what open versus closed AI is all about.
Yeah, I think one of the first things to notice is it's a different Zuckerberg. He's kind of rebranded himself with this open side. It is interesting to see how a person leading a company goes from the Zuckerberg we used to see talking about the metaverse and all that, and where they changed the name from Facebook to Meta, and they're driving that down. And now we have this new version, this, I don't know what to call him, but he's different Zuckerberg, and it is very more open, very more on the edge. I mean, he's a little bit easier to watch now, less robotic, right? That people used to say about him. And like, for some reason, he had that nice...
he can wakeboard with the best of them.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Hand, American flag, he's a killer.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. But on the open source versus closed, right? So this is the same discussion we've had long time ago when we had Windows versus Linux, right? And so you have open source and closed source systems. Those systems are either good or bad for other things. Linux took a long time to get its feet under everything. A lot of people went to it because they had more. It was really like the tech savvy folks that were there were like, hey, I understand this, I control this. You actually had more government systems running different forms of Linux, like Unix and different aspects of that, Solaris and stuff like this. So different flavors are going to come out of this. And I think the biggest pull out of open source versus closed sources, it's exactly that. Open source is giving it back into people's hands. Everybody puts notes in there. They changed up a little bit. You get many different forms. It's going to massively push the startup markets. It's going to massively engage people to have the ability to do so. The big thing though is also it takes systems. It takes massive systems to run some of these things. These larger models, like 3.1 that came out, it's 405 billion parameters. It's insanely huge. So it is one of the largest. It is interesting to see what's going to come out of that. Like, what kind of trainings were put into it? Where did they get the trainings? How did they get that big of models? Like, how much of that data was simulated data or synthetic data? And so that's what we haven't seen yet. We see the testing that was done. And so you have like those test measurements and to see like where they line up versus all the other ones. And it looks great, right? So we're seeing that every time. So every time we have a new model that comes out and somebody says, look what I did, they're using those same measures. And are we playing against ourselves? Are we testing the right stuff, or are we gamifying it?
Well, so we know Zuckerberg, we know there's an upside somewhere. What's the upside? What's the upside to being open source? What's the game?
I think they saw closed source that they've done with, I mean, it's not fully closed source with their VR stuff and what they've done with Oculus and whatnot, but they have they've gone that route, did the Microsoft way, like, let's gather everybody up, let's pull everybody in, and let's gobble up the small shops and then bring their games in and drive some of that. And so we've seen how that worked out, and it didn't really work out. Like, metaverse didn't really catch on. Is it still neat? Is it cool? Yeah, it's way better than what it used to be, and it's getting there where there's object alignments and things that are You have like the little bunny that hides behind like the couch or whatever. So those are neat. It's not there yet. And so the hope is that maybe there's a combination, because they have dev kits on there. Maybe there's a combination between that and what they're doing on the Llama side, and saying, if we do open source over here, can we bridge the two at some point? When does it happen? Because even Linux, right? So Linux, it's big opportunity back in like whatever year it was, like Red Hat comes out, and that became like a standard for some of your servers and stuff like that. And then the internet kind of worked on a lot of these. And then you get Apache that comes out of that, and that becomes the status quo for most web servers, right? And we still have Apache servers driving things. So that all came from open source. So open source is the driving force for mass market adoption. And it's going to take time, although with AI and everything that does take time, but it's very, very fast. I think we're going to see the fact that many people are going to put their hands on it and do some really amazing things with it.
Well, and isn't that ultimately what's going to drive the bus? It was Red Hat, right? It was,
yeah.
In the end,
it's like Red Hat, Ubuntu, you name it. Yeah.
Don't you need that at this point, or is Meta going to just kind of plow in with their own suite of solutions, similar to kind of the way Microsoft might do it, where they kind of release the OS and then they release things on top of it that they own?
I mean, you would hope that something that is open source would stay open source, kind of like your comment in the beginning, where we have a closed source AI like OpenAI, right? However, OpenAI used to be open source, and then they closed themselves, and that was the whole thing between themselves and Elon Musk fighting it out, that we heard in the news. So the hope is that Llama, if they're going to say, we're doing an open source AI solution, we're building these models, we're building these parameters, we're putting the money behind this, we're going to keep driving it open source. The hope is that it stays open source and doesn't just close. I don't know if they can. There's probably some legalities there that would keep them from doing that.
I'll take him at his word. Everything Zuckerberg is saying is he's staying open source, but
right.
But there's got to be a master plan underneath that yields he's playing to win.
They are Facebook in general has been the masters. They won the social media war. They started it. They got it in there. They still listen to people's data on their cell phones, whether or not the people listen or not. I mean, everyone knows that.
The truth of the matter is, the reason why Llama is such an impressive piece of kit is because they have everything underneath it. They have the most massive data collection in the history of data collection. With Facebook and with Instagram and with WhatsApp and with, on and on and on.
Yeah. So the probably the hope is there, when you have something open source and you have an industry or an organization like Facebook Meta that has provided this open, but they are very good at mining data. They're very good at dragging metadata out of things and understanding how they work. Any iteration that sees value, why couldn't they spin that off and create a business around that, or create a new service around that, create a new app around that? That's probably the key. If you're building open source and you're giving it to the masses and you have access to see kind of what's being done, that's free devs.
Well, it's fascinating because it's going to be a battle of the giants, with all these smaller apps kind of riding shotgun until they start to kick in. And I don't think we've seen the real killer apps arrive yet, but they're getting there. Every day there's a little bit more interest in video creation and 3D creation and more practical things like data analytics and marketing automation and so forth.
Yeah, there's the thought in the AI community is that originally when Gen AI came out in OpenAI, it says, hey, we're building to AGI. This is the goal. Automate, artificial general intelligence. That's where we're going. This is what we're going to do. It's going to happen. And it didn't happen. As far as anybody knows, maybe it's in a lab somewhere that nobody sees.
I think you got to give them a little time. When the internet hit, everybody was talking about how we're going to do all our commerce online, and everybody's like, "Nah, I don't even like this email thing that you're sending me." And
we're still using Lotus Notes.
And that kind of sorted itself out. This thing just hit, less than 2 years ago in the wild. I mean, I'd give it a little more time to percolate.
Yeah, there was talks about it only taking about a year to hit it, though, right? It's just,
AGI.
again, yeah, there was people in the news saying that it was going to
I
get
think that
there,
was
and then
yeah.
yeah, and then you
AGI
had
is a
like
way bigger problem.
some of the different things that came out during the same time is like the Q star and what was it and what did it do, and then we find out finally we get some information on that and what happened inside of OpenAI when all the upheaval came out, but then Q star turns into like basically they're saying, hey, there was really 4.0, the Omni model that's out right now, and that was just kind of what they were building up because it had kind of like a chain of thought built into it. And it was really kind of neat. Going forward is like where does that go now? And since we didn't hit AGI, but we still may. What happens?
We're definitely going to hit AGI. There's no stopping this. We're definitely
right. We're going to hit some point, right?
We're going to hit it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, artificial general intelligence or ASI, artificial super intelligence, which is hopefully way down the road. But then you have NVIDIA coming out and they said, well, hey, here's our AI method. We're going to build better infrastructure, and we're going to build infrastructure utilizing our AI methods and our trained AI models that we built out to understand how we do what we do. And so that's been great for them. And so now you have these models that are open source. And so I think we're seeing just the innovation cycle, right? We're seeing something new comes into the markets that is omnipresent. And now we're seeing how does the market soak with this thing and how do we use it? The businesses are still saying, how do we use it? The enterprises are saying,
this comes back to the fact that the apps haven't been properly developed so that it's easy enough for a business to purchase it in comfort and confidence. But
yeah, best practices aren't there yet, right? Like the
sales
tried and
teams
true
haven't even been hired yet, but they're going to be the product people are building. The sales teams are going to be hired next year, and then the pipelines will be built, and there will be cycles and cycles. It's inevitable that there's going to be breakout stars. I mean, companies like in the last cloud cycle, Salesforce.com at the time, now Salesforce. Nobody had ever heard of them before, and now they've got a tower in every city. Not that there's anybody in those towers, but they do have a tower in every city.
They have a really nice elevated park in San Francisco. That's really neat. But yeah, and the agent side, right? So each one of those platforms is bringing on their own kind of enterprise agent to them that is driving this. We've talked about that though, but in general, it's interesting to see how that's going out. But the fact that an open AI model, or not an open AI model, but an AI model, a Gen AI model that is open source is really cool to see. And it does seem like the team over there at Llama and Meta is very excited about it. And I know that the majority of people I meet in the San Francisco area that are trying new things and doing startups, 90% of them are using Llama models.
Oh, well, interesting. What else is happening in the world of AI that we can talk about that you saw happening recently?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that's going on is still traveling around and seeing different things that are going on. I got invited to some interesting things we could probably talk about next. But in general, the biggest thing that is in the AI space is still, there's actually people even in the automation and Gen AI space that are saying, like, these enterprises are coming in and saying, hey, we can't use it. Like, yes, we can use RAG models. Yes, we can do different things. But like the value of where like automation was actually driving millions of dollars per year being saved, of time saved from actual tasks and processes, that's very commoditized. But then you have this new AI that's coming in and saying, hey, we can do that too. And then you find out enterprise is hard and it's not as easy because of the legacy stuff and because of the different nuance of it. And you need a little bit of, not rigidity, but you need some of that audit trail that's there. And AI does not have that yet. And you still don't know what your AI is doing all the time. So when you have Gen AI and you bring it in, it's still, although it's not being black box trained on your data, it's still kind of black box to you. And so there's an issue there.
So are you saying that organizations aren't adopting AI at kind of the molecular level here, at the worker level? That the workers aren't using AI or Gen AI?
If the workers are using AI, if a company has brought it in, the most likely use cases are they're allowing their users to use their own individual like ChatGPT model so they can use it internally that is not being utilized by OpenAI itself to train on their data. So it's singular use case there. or they're using it for a knowledge base of sorts, or they're using it for a RAG model, different types of RAG models, to generate ways to not edit, but like to talk to their data. Now, GPT-4o gives the ability to very quickly, because it has like basically a RAG model built into it, so you can actually ingest data very quickly. Like, hey, here's this document, give me the summary of that document, or hey, here's two documents, what do they both mean, and how do I relate to them, right? So there's some really cool stuff in 4o that has just recently come out from Microsoft.
I mean, how do manager organizations not begin to explore this aggressively? I mean, you're playing with fire. This is fire. This is like the invention of fire.
Yes. So the issue there is that they are aggressively trying to adopt it. Every company is right now. The problem is they're trying to adopt at a rate that also is not training the people, right? The individual workers potentially are not learning, hey, don't trust this all the way. Like, make sure you do your due diligence. And so there's ways to possibly build some of that in, like warnings, or put it inside of Windows, or kind of widget it in there and saying like, hey, this window here, you're going to get information from it. Don't always trust what it says, but do your homework, right? Are people going to do that, or are people going to just do what they normally do and say, oh, well, it's good enough, and just go with it? So there is some risk, right? So companies that move too fast are taking risk on much faster.
Every initiative has risk. Organizations deal with risk daily. You're not a Wall Street brokerage house without a little bit of risk tolerance. And so, but you're also, I mean, you have lights on 24 hours a day in the developer's room, sorting out how to use AI to optimize trading now, aggressively, full-time, 24 hours a day, until you have something that is better than anything the competition is currently doing, right? I mean, everybody, you're crazy if you're not investing massively internally right now in how to take advantage of it. I can't see how you could sit there and
right. But then the investment side of that is upwards of millions of dollars, or thousands upon thousands of dollars per month that's going to be going out into this. And although it's a worthwhile investment, not a lot of people are seeing, well, if I invest this much money, how long does that take to see that money back? What does that return on investment look like? And that's really hard to see. And so usually with projects, you have that, hey, here's what we're doing this year. We're going to drive these projects. Here, which one's a critical path, and then how much is that going to cost us, and what are we going to get back? You can define that. This doesn't have that ability very easily.
Yeah, but I don't think the PC had that. I don't think the internet had that. I think it was all brand new, and people were either got it or they didn't get it, and the companies that didn't get it aren't around anymore.
I mean, PCs like replaced the typewriter, so it's faster. You had word processing. People are selling those as apps and stuff. And again, to your point, like Gen AI doesn't have an app yet, other than like, hey, you can talk to it and can help you with your emails better. It can help you in a multicultural, governmental, or different countries, so you can actually talk to different languages and probably have a better conversation than using something in the past that we had. So there are some wins, but those wins are, although they are apparent, they are not attributed to direct cost, and that's
again, the where are you gonna recoup your money? You're going to eliminate people. That's how you're going to recoup money. The salespeople are going to come with a story that says, we have every law and legal opinion and decision in a large language model and a neural network that can replace all of your paralegals except 3 or whatever it is. I mean, and you're going to say, okay. I mean, it's going to be an easy decision for a lot of places to just wipe people out. I mean, at the expense of, I mean, the value equation is going to be bodies for efficiency.
That's what people look at first. Yes, I don't always agree with that. I think that we should be looking at. So
I don't agree with it either. But try to explain that to. Capitalism has a lot of things going for it. It has a lot of things that are kind of inalterable and
right. But when a company grows 18% every year, that's what they're trying to get to, like 8 to 18%. Like let's have growth, right? they're going to get more customers. And although they can do a lot with AI and Gen AI, if they are looking to replace people because they're working with those SMEs, those subject matter experts and those domain experts, I still believe that there is a shot of you're not firing really anybody. You're just not hiring those other 10 people because this digital worker, this digital assistant, this digital intern is going to be doing that for that other set,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and maybe that's how it plays out. But I think that only plays out for so long, and then it's just a matter of
Right.
simple
I mean, there's definitely people going to be replaced, right?
cost.
That's and then either they're replaced because of the work they were doing was massively just should have been automated in the first place or should have been
Well,
done
no,
in
I
a
don't.
way that
That's the thing. I don't think a lot of it was automatable prior, but now it is. I mean, that's the thing. Now it is. Now it's not. It's never been more clear that we don't need this many writers. We don't need this many marketing people. We don't need this many analysts. We don't need. And we just won't. There's no way people can compete with
yeah. The
agents
other
that
side
are
is
coming.
right, but it's just going to take a little while just because you have to get that nuance out of the way. Like how do they do the work, and can you trust them to do the work? And so at first you're going to bring these technologies in, and then you're going to let them sit a little bit, and then you're going to see, can we do it without as many people, or do we just move people to a different role, or do we just say yes, we're going to? I mean, where I would target anything is where I would target your seasonal workers. I would target your workers that are temporary workers. All of those workers are the exact place where any enterprise or any company should say, hey, if I had a person, if I already know that I need this person for this length of time versus a regular employee, why am I not doing that? That's where you should hit.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's inevitable. It's you know.
Yeah.
We all
It would be an easier conversation if we had all the new jobs starting up, right? So you have a new commodity, you have a new thing that comes out in the marketplace, and there's all these innovations, yet there's no real new jobs. There's AI jobs, and there's like AI jobs around AI jobs, but there's in general, there's not, we need all these people to go do this stuff. And so that's the hard part. And if we had that, it'd be a much easier conversation to say, look, if you do get disserviced or you do get moved off or you decide to leave or, quit out, then maybe you go to a school and you learn this, and then this is a new job that's out there that we didn't know about before. So, but I don't really see that yet. I'm trying to work with some teams to build that.
Yeah, no, so are we. I think I genuinely worry about people and how tentative or how tenuous the value equation is for information workers in this new era. It's going to be a hard sell to maintain some of these positions, and the idea that there's going to be a flood of other positions that are going to come along. I mean, that's not the way cloud worked. It's not the way it works anymore like that.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to have a new collar. There's white collar, blue collar, and AI collar. So I hope not.
Yeah,
that's the future I don't want to happen.
No, I hope there are collars at all.
Yeah, we don't need
I think
collars.
blue collar, the great irony is that the blue collar is the safest collar to be wearing right now. The white collar is the one that's directly in sights.
Yeah, some people say that the Optimus bot, like some of the bots that like Tesla and some of these other companies are building, are going to take those jobs on. And I don't see that. I think
when you see how they can't monkey wrench things quite the same way as a really well trained trades person, it's a different. But hopefully we get there too. I mean, there are a lot of very dangerous jobs out there that would be far better served by having machines go.
And that's where I see that going. I mean, if we're talking about machines, some of the future where I see that actually happening is machines are going to take those dangerous jobs, right? Like bomb dogs or things like that, or like radioactive material and handling and things that are interesting like that. Yet, I do think that we're not going to have autonomous ones until we actually probably have like them standing next to us, and then we can go into like a VR type of area, and then we're actually running and doing things as them through us, right? And so then it records the video and it understands how we do what we do. So say some of the most important things right now, probably in our not geopolitical, but it's just in general, like the world, are all the countries right now relatively have a aging population. And so if we have an aging population, how are we supporting that aging population? And if we had virtual reality and we had robots, and then we're able to actually have tactile responses, could we then kind of take a follow the sun approach and work with these robots and actually have trained nurses be in VR, work with these robots, and then actually turning customers over, turning people over, and or feeding them or taking care of them or helping them out of bed.
That's what I'm looking forward to in my old age.
Yeah, I want the robots to take care of me.
Something to pick me up when I fall out of my chair. And
I mean, we don't want family to do it, right?
And a story.
You don't want to be somebody's burden, but a robot, like, hey, like, I'm down. So.
Yep. All right. Well, let's take a break, and we get back. We'll talk a little bit more about some of your travels.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today. Now back to the show.
All right, Doug, you have been and are always out on the road, and maybe a little out of the AI bucket, but you were at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, along with pretty much everybody else. There's a lot of news coming out of there.
There's a ton. Yeah, last week was the Bitcoin conference. I try not to get on the road as much, but when things happen, I want to. I got invited. So basically, being in the AI space, the Gen AI space, and then the enterprise automation space I'm in, and as a practitioner, at the different number one-offs and some companies were saying, "Hey, come join us over here. Check this out. This space is growing, right? It's finally hitting mainstream." And I was like, "What do you mean hitting mainstream?" And then talking to them and looking at the different events that are going on. And then seeing the massive political landscape that was actually going to be in attendance, I was like, oh, yeah, I should go. This looks interesting to go to. And some of the different people are talking, like Kathy Woods was there, Russell Brand. And so the major names in the play. So,
well, is it hitting mainstream? I mean, I'm curious about that because, I mean, the Bitcoin, we've all been aware of Bitcoin for some time. Certainly it's been around for a little more than 10 years, I guess, something like that. Was it 2013 when it came, or no, 9?
Like 08, 09, right? It was talked about a little bit, and then
But then it went through a ramp, and it crashed. It went through another ramp, and it crashed, and now it's ramping a third time. Is this the third ramp? And this one's the one to end all crashes, or what? Or are we just getting roller coaster right? into? Is this just a trip to Six Flags?
Yeah, I think every person that is a Bitcoiner or somebody that is invested in Bitcoin in general, it feels like a ride to end all rides. But it continues to grow strong. It continues to drive up. There was like 55% in this last year. It's crazy the amount of growth. Now,
but it goes down lickety split. I mean, it went from whatever it was, 55 to 19. That
was the last cycle. Yeah. This last one we just had. So every 4 years, there's this halving period that a lot of people don't know about. And this halving period is where it takes more effort to actually do the hashing and getting the like money for actually doing these transactions and kind of watching the actual the blockchain, right? So that halving period happens and then everything drops because what happens is a lot of the miners that are in there drop out because it's not worth it for them to continue mining Bitcoins, to continue to driving these transactions. And actually it's kind of complicated, but it's interesting to actually learn it. And that's kind of why I went out there too. I was like, okay, what is this stuff? And seeing how that worked out is it did drop, but then as it cost more effort to actually do the same job they were doing previously, the price then goes back up, right? And that although it is a price go up kind of situation, it's going to go up. But instead of like talking about how and where it's going to go, what I want to talk about, I think here is the one part I got from my perspective coming into this is the fact that we are massively moving into a digital world. We have been doing digital transformation for a very long time. We've taken businesses, we've taken enterprises to be more digital. We've taken all of our devices and all of our things to be more digital. And everyone in the space says, when you're doing digital transformation, it's about people. And I've always said, yes, it's about people, but really when you break it down to companies and styling of what that means, it's really about a company's culture and the people that work there and their culture as part of that company. But then going to this Bitcoin conference and seeing how a digital currency has not just enabled third world countries, not just enabled people that aren't tied to banking, the giant banking infrastructures, they can just bank from their phone using digital currencies, then is a digital currency something we should be looking at in a digital transformation? Because if we are, maybe that's why all these companies are starting to invest in it. Maybe this is why El Salvador decided to change their currency over to Bitcoin, and the things that we're seeing. Maybe this is why this political landscape and the 10 or so different senators were actually showing up to this event, and there was almost 30,000 people at this event. So there's a lot of neat things that came out of it and a lot of different people that I got to meet. But seeing how a digital currency could impact digital transformations and how we do work, there's some interesting stuff there. And there's actually some interesting stuff on AI. But yeah, if you have any questions on that, we could get into that too.
No, I'm happy to drill down into the Bitcoin thing. I mean, I have a couple of takes on this. One take is that no government in their right mind is going to allow Bitcoin to go unfettered. That the EU, the IMF, the Fed, they're not going to say, oh yeah, we're all going to get into Bitcoin. There's just no way they're going to do that. They're going to come up with their own digital currency, primarily, and the best part of it, coming up with a Bitcoin-like federal currency, is that then you can track everybody's money perfectly.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate bait and switch, right? Oh, we're all in favor of digital currency. Yeah, Bitcoin. Now we're going to have the digital dollar. And it's the same thing as Bitcoin. And it works the same way, sort of, kind of. But we're not going to allow Bitcoin anymore, or we're going to allow it, but we're going to marginalize it, or maybe we're going to treat it like gold. And put it in Fort. We're going to buy it all up and put it in Fort Knox, and that'll be that.
Well, that was talked about too, actually.
Well, again, it's like I don't think the IMF is gonna entertain this for 10 seconds once it's mainstream. I think they've been side-eyeing it for a long time, and they're like, "You got to be kidding me! We're not going to allow that."
Yeah, I don't think any big traditional banking that we know of today would do much with it. They may diversify, because there are companies diversifying with it to show growth and to show, because it's doing well in like the markets that it's in. So there's some interesting stuff there. It'd be hard. It is hard a lot of people there are very much like, you're not going to, there's no way the banks can really take the Bitcoin that they have, because it's not something that, it's something that the person
for you to put your little safe inside a safe deposit box, and that's about it.
Maybe you might not want to put it in a bank that doesn't like what you did. So in general, but yeah, people feel very safe with it. They have control of their own digital asset. It's one of the first ways to do that. So instead of like burying it in the backyard or putting it underneath the mattress that some people do when they don't use banks, what do you do? Well, if you put it into this digital currency, I think the best way to...
and again, when you're with 30,000 people that have Bitcoin and they're all comfortable with it, I think it feels like it's gone mainstream. But there are so many people who have no ability or access or even the wherewithal, even if they wanted to even know what to do with it, or how to spend it, or where, or how blockchain works. It's like this is a complicated, and again, that's the hell of it, is that it's the canary in the coal mine, or whatever it is. It's like the Fed and all those politicians, they're all going to cheer it on and say yeehaw, but they're in the end not going to allow this thing a life of its own, because it's completely inequitable right now. There are people who have it, and people who have no idea how to get it and wouldn't know what to do with it if they were given it.
There's definitely, I mean, just like with any technology, right? I mean, there's people right now that, we think everybody's on AI and everybody's utilizing like ChatGPT, and then we still find out there's a massive amount that are not using it, and some of it because they don't want to learn
I
it.
agree with that.
Yeah. So I think with any adoption, it's going to take time. But the fact that, political figures are coming out and saying, we're going to make this a strategic asset and hold that into countries, that's an interesting claim. And I find that to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, that I think it. I think it's a very interesting claim. So let's talk about it for a second, because let's say we were to try to get into it as a nation, and say we're going to fill the Fort Knox, we're going to fill it with our own Bitcoin. We're going to mine the blazes out of the blockchain, and we're going to what power require? I mean, I know there's like, there's like rainy seasons in China where all the servers are fully lit, and when it doesn't rain in China and the hydropower isn't working, the whole country goes brown because all the miners are sucking all the power that are out of the grid. It's like, what does it require to get into the mass production of Bitcoin?
It requires a lot, and so that's actually the thing that really got my attention.
That's the only thing, right? And that is the only value exchange for a Bitcoin is energy. Effectively,
that is a big proponent, because you need the energy to be doing the transactions and then getting the win of that transaction.
Right,
and that's Bitcoin, right?
The singular transaction is you do processing for the network, you get paid in Bitcoin.
Right.
But
and
order
ideally,
to do
the more
that processing,
the more energy you require.
You need massive amounts of energy, because that little box, or all those boxes, I mean, and in order and the amount that you're paid for a fair amount of energy is not much.
And it goes down, like, again, with the halving period. So like that's why now
there's nothing left, by the way.
Yeah. So there is nothing left. I think
there's a limit to eventually there will be no more Bitcoin, theoretically. Correct. According to Satoshi or we'll reach the end.
So I think the last period, I think, is 21 or 2056, I believe. So there's a lot of years left.
Well,
but
not,
in general,
not in the nation state department. That's not very far away in a nation state perspective.
Right. When you're looking at it, from that aspect. But the main thing is, like, these miners require a lot of power. The good news is, or at least the way to look at it, so these miners require power, and the AI teams that are building these generative AIs and building these large parameters, that they are also requiring tons and tons of computational power and direct drive of where that's going. So whatever way any nation goes, is like, how do we get that power? What does that look like? Because there's all different kinds of power, but again, there's wind power, solar power, and if you have too much sun, not enough wind, maybe you're doing wave power. There's talk about that, where there's some really neat stuff I was looking at. But in general, all this power is needed, but it's not enough. No matter how much we do, we're probably never going to get enough. And then when you have nuclear power, and they say that it takes 20 years to put one of those up, traditional wise, with like the uranium and whatnot, that's a long time. So where are we going to start using fossil fuels again, right? And so there was talks from certain political figures that said, we're going to turn on the coal and we're going to turn on the gas. And I was like, whoa, okay, how about that? So, but what do you do, right? If you have this new technology and everything about it requires, like the AI, we know we need it, we know we want it, everybody's using it, and this is the goal, and we need power for it. Great. Well, we got to build that. And then if we have these miners that are mining these digital currencies, they have to go build that too. And there was talks that some of these miners, they have different corporations, different companies that are building power plants middle of nowhere, and like literally middle of nowhere. And then what happens is you have to build these mining facilities right around that power plant. But then now we have issues where the sound decibels of the fans to keep these things cool can potentially hurt people. Because there was a article that came out that said some of these fans are hitting 90 decibels, And over the course of like 1 to 3 miles away, people were getting nauseated and dizzy and getting sick. And so now they're having to retool what they do and how they cool their stuff down and how these fans and the sound makes. And so, yeah, they're putting them in the middle of nowhere because they can't be around people. And then at the same time, some of these other companies we got the chance to talk to are saying, at least with miners in this digital currency world, they can actually work with the AI companies. So when the AI companies need the power, the AI power goes up, and then the miners can shut off for a little bit if they need to. Or say if there's a heat index, or say if there's wind or no water, or monsoon season or non-monsoon season. So they can work with that. And so that's nice that they can kind of shut down and go on and off, while AI always needs this fluctuation of energy that's going on.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's an energy crisis, like that we're going to need an energy crisis. I think that's great because that's a problem we can go solve, and we should try to solve it. And if there's one thing I know, and one thing you saw when you flew from the Bay Area to Nashville, is there's a lot of land, man. There's a lot of land and not a lot of people between Nashville and San Francisco. There's plenty of places to put things.
Lots of plots of they're just there. And so,
so I think it's great. I think this is that's the kind of national challenge,
right?
That we should rise to. I know. I think I just saw last week that China has tested a new type of nuclear facility that is built on sand, as I understand it, and it basically prevents, if all the power shuts down, it cools itself from the sand that it's been built on, so that there can be no meltdown even without power. It's actually, I don't know if that actually functions, but that sounded like a really clever idea.
Yeah, I heard about it. I haven't done the research yet, but I believe it's called thorium, and I believe that those plants, from what I've just overheard, are able to be stood up much faster, and they don't have meltdowns. And so you can stand them up, you can shut them down, and that's not the less risk. So that might be a solution there. But I think, again, like there's an issue, there's a pain point, we need a solution. And so we have people thinking about, how do we gain more power? And then when we gain more power, and if we need these facilities being built, we have more jobs. And so is AI creating jobs? Yeah. I mean, we're building power plants, but also is Bitcoin and these miners creating jobs? Yeah, they're building facilities everywhere, and they're trying to find the cheapest place to do that. And so, again, do we do that in the United States, or do we do that everywhere else, and then just build it in some way, shape, or form, or bring it in? So there's definitely more jobs coming in those fields, and it is an up-and-coming field. I mean, there's tons of people getting into it. It's still fairly new, even though it's been around for 20 plus, not 20 years, but like since like 09 time.
My two boys are 25 and 24. One is in the solar project development business. He's out there working with farmers to build massive solar panel installations, and my other son is in the energy battery storage business, where basically all the excess power gets housed until it is required. And they're both the businesses they're working for are booming. So you're right. There's jobs out there.
It's definitely around the energy space. And I know California needs some battery storage, and I'll tell you. So
yeah, the battery storage game
they're bleeding energy because we have so much solar. They don't know what to do with it all. But if we can store it, then we can use it. So.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. Yeah, they're very complementary to one another, and it's interesting to see. All right, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we'll wrap this show up with a little bit of. I guess we'll get back to AI. I don't know. I kind of like the crypto talk. Maybe we can even talk a little bit about how. Well, we'll see. We'll take a break. Get back.
Want more Insight Jam? Follow us on Instagram for exclusive content like a daily dose of best practices and buying advice from industry experts and leading solution providers. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel for long-form highlights from our expert panel discussions. And if you prefer to listen, please rate and review the Insight Jam podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Google. The Solutions Review team is hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so don't miss out. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, Doug, I have another take with regard to what we were just talking about, and that is What happens when AI, AGI, and then this kind of dark cloud that everybody is predicting, this quantum computing kind of muscular super computing power combined with AGI, I guess, to get to that what was it, SGI, super
ASI, if
ASI
it goes that far.
ASI. When we finally get to that level of super intelligence, how does digital currency, how does any currency, how does any encryption withstand the ability for bad actors to leverage these tools at super power level, and they want access to all the goodies?
Yeah. I mean, not being a quantum expert, but there's a lot of hope and dream there that to hope that it is done right and the hope that it's done in a way that is secure. So, I mean, right now there's limitations on quantum. And so that's stuff that I've researched. And when you see it, they can only be on for a number of minutes there, and then they're on and off. But even in like a minute, they do a lot. And so could they crack?
And the limitation is because of the inability for it to operate.
Most of it's thermodynamics, because the heat and then the use and the energy, and then also how they are able to capture the qubits and kind of look at how this works. And it's the whole Schrodinger cat thing. Like, is it there? Is it not there? But it's only there when you see it. And when you see it, you're like, hey, it's a 1 or a 0, and there it is. But it could be any superposition, right? So any superposition in the whole spectrum of what that looks like. It's interesting. I know that AT&T back over a year ago had a patent, because I watch patents here and there too, of they actually created a way, or supposedly created, at least patented, an idea of how you can basically use quantum computers to actually send text messages via like a pager. And so that you could have a quantum secure pager that you can send an information to somebody else's pager that had a quantum pager, and they would that information would be encrypted to a point that only other quantum pager could read it.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Shiva Nathan, who was the CEO of Anonymous, and he believed that, his theory is that organizations are not going to want to house data because of the liability of not being able to protect it. That forget just the monetary data, just data in general. That and when you see the hacks, the legendary hacks that have happened, the most recent being this AT&T one, which is a real whiz banger. I think actually, the argument could be made that, there really isn't a big penalty at this point. Like, it's like it happens all the time. Nobody's gone out of business that I know of. I mean, it seems like there's no penalty. And as a result, the caring of this data is a little bit cavalier as a result. But what about the idea that eventually you're going to be held responsible?
So in general, like to his point, is that would companies? I don't see companies. I see ones that are like the AT&T or even healthcare companies. Anything that is touching us, like us humans, right? Us end users, the people that are utilizing these services or are members of these services or are the downstream of these. Yeah, why wouldn't it? Why, like, it'd be great if there was a more secure solution out there that was mandated to protect your data, that was massively sued if they screwed up. And so, because the fact that like 23andMe got hacked, the fact that AT&T got hacked,
23andMe,
so all of our digital DNA is
an absolute hoot.
So our DNA is out there. So
DNA all over the place. It's a crime scene.
Yeah, I think it was October of last year. It's horrible. So anybody that signed up for that, you're like, wow. And then there's that, and then there's a lot of the healthcare companies have been hacked recently, and or taken advantage of, or even shut down in some cases. So there's too much security issues going on, and with the new coming world of IoT,
and absolutely no repercussions of any note. I don't know that one business has gone out of business because they were
true. I haven't seen it. At least
it's outrageous.
They'll get a fine, and then I think the only thing, what is it? They have to the stipulation, I believe, is if you get hacked or you have something that happens in that regard, you have a certain number of days that you have to report it to like the FBI and some of these different other groups inside the whatever country you're in. And then you then have to provide services to your customers. I think even when like some of the banking companies were hacked, they then say, oh, well, for this many years, you have this LifeLock or some other kind of company to watch your stuff.
Here you go.
So again, there's other
Put
companies that are
sticker on
solving
your
this
window, and everything's okay.
Yeah, you'll be fine. There's a sticker on your window. So there's that aspect of it where, we need some. I think the legislative or laws around that need to happen very quickly around this, because security. I mean, I'm looking at the trends, and the trends say they're not being funded into, or we're either too secure that we're becoming unsecure. Same thing with the CrowdStrike issue. Was it secure? Yeah, they were actually patching the system, doing some stuff, and like maybe they missed something. Maybe like it's still kind of hard to know all the details of what happened there. But in general, things are happening and they're massive, and there's massive losses. There's lawsuits that happen, but what do we see from that? We don't really see like the transparency of it. So do we trust it? And it's really hard to trust.
How about that CrowdStrike thing? Not to go completely off the rails here, but this is another one that frosts me. It's you don't realize. I mean, what's Microsoft giving them access down to what the kernel, the BIOS? I mean, it's like they that little update
patch
went down to the molecular level of these systems, to the beyond any
that you had to rebuild them
beyond any security level.
Yeah, it takes time to rebuild VMs. Yeah.
And what's Microsoft doing with I mean, where did again, if you were to read the EULA of all these things that we all just click on, you would see in the 50-second page, paragraph 72, you would see some line in there about how you've given away, or they've agreed to basically provide
they're not
access to every keystroke that you've ever typed.
It's interesting. I mean, like we said before, like the different we sign a lot of our freedoms away in those regards, because we want the free thing, or we want to have access to this thing, or we want to be able to do something.
Well, and nobody's protecting us. I mean, it's the only way to get the thing. Nobody's protecting us, and nobody is protecting us. The government is overmatched and out to lunch on that particular issue.
Right. So if that's still the case, and we have the Internet of Things coming back, right? IoT is coming back hard. And when it does, we're still seeing the fact that there's innovations coming. There's new things. The LLMs and Gen AI is enabling these IoT solutions, and these small medical devices, these new cell phones, these new AI devices that hang around your neck and take notes for you, or all these different things, like your AI companions that are going to be coming out. I have like a toy for my kid that has like an AI companion, and you can talk to it and you can kind of train on it, and then have it talk to your kid about certain things, because they don't like to listen to parents anyway, right? But at least you can kind of tell the little AI thing, hey, say this, and work on their math homework. So there's some bonuses there, but there's a give and take. Like, I don't know where that information's going, so you don't want to put too much information in there, right? So you don't, the aspects of that and the safety of that is still nebulous. And so these black boxes are going to, in the end, still be black boxes.
It's funny, as I've gotten older, you're supposed to get more conservative.
Is that what's supposed to happen?
I don't feel like I'm getting more conservative. I feel like I'm getting more
cynical. Spectacles.
Well, that's for sure. But I feel like I'm almost never the one to raise my hand and say the government should be stepping in and trying to do something. But it's hard not to sit here and be informed by email 6 times a year that my data is gone in whatever system I put it in. And
I mean, you would think, usually it would be like a state issue on small things, but when it comes to the larger things and across state lines, like it should be some of the larger government people and facilities to take care of this. And although they say they are, there's no transparency there in some cases.
Or we get to a point where we're all we're all our own island of data. And we own our own data, we control our own data, and we're remunerated whenever anybody wants access to our data. That there is a direct. This is where maybe this is. I don't even know what political spectrum this gets into, but one thought is that you want my data, you want me to be a lead, you want me to share my contact information. I'm happy to, for the standard fee that is required, because they're getting paid. They're every time I fill out a form, every time I go online and behave as a sales opportunity for an organization, they are monetized. That
Yes.
sales opportunity has a monetary value in the big lead generation exchange that I know quite well, and I get none of it as the individual lead owner.
Do you know what does give you anonymity and give you the ability to control your data and give you the ability to be unknown?
I can almost hear it coming.
It's the blockchain, right? So
no, well
you
let's
digital
all right,
currency.
while we get a few more minutes. I mean, walk
Yeah,
down
so-
that path,
so-
because it may well
right.
be the blockchain is the answer to everything.
It may be, it may not
It's
be, right?
It's actually
again-
a brilliant. The blockchain is a brilliant invention.
Right. So think about this, right? So digital currency a different way. Let's talk about that. When you go to Las Vegas and you go to a casino, what do? You're walking in with your fiat. They call it fiat money, and that's what it is because it's based on a gold standard or some kind of standard. And then you're going to provide that money. I feel like I can lose $1,000. Okay, you put $1,000 in. They give you the casino, the specific casino you go to, gives you their chips, their digital chips, for example. And then you take those digital chips and you go gamble and spend money. You can tip people with it. You can buy drinks with it. You can buy whatever you want, like with these chips. And then if you win more chips back, and then you take that back to that same group of that casino, you trade that back in for fiat money. What's the difference? And you're anonymous the whole time. Nobody says, "Hey, Doug, who are you? Well, you're at our table. We want to know you. We want to sell your information." They don't.
Oh, I think the casinos very much we're going to want to know.
With facial recognition and everything else.
More chips than you started with.
Well, casino always wins, right? So
well, they're going to want to know who you are. I think they have to know who you are.
If you start winning, they're definitely going to want to know who you are. Yeah.
But again, my point is that we are all being undervalued as owners of data,
right?
And again, to get back to this point of like right now, we're giving our data away for the value exchanges. Okay, you will give me something, right? You're going to give me access to an application, and I will give you my data. You're going to give me a collection of bids for my mortgage. Or some other, right? There's all kinds of value exchanges.
Every credit card that you own is mining your data and your purchases.
Right.
And selling that.
And
they know who you are, what you like.
At a fairly liberal rate. They're getting paid decent money, and that's just one transaction of my data. And again, I come back to this idea. Well, where does and I don't know whether I've gone fully left or fully right in this
pendulum swing again.
Well, I'm all over the map, but how about it? How about we sort out a way for people to be the custodians of their own data and at least be paid appropriately for the sharing of it? Because right now, I mean, the custodianship is lacking across the board in almost every way.
As soon as you turn 18, and before you turn 18 even, you are being like commoditized. You're being turned into an asset of somebody's data set.
You're monetized many times. I bet you'd be shocked at how much your data has been valued, your individual lead, over your lifetime. From the time you join,
it'd be interesting.
Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, to the point where you get student loans, to the point where you get your credit cards, to the point where you get your first mortgage and you buy life insurance and you get a car loan and and all the things that you've bought through all of these lead generation elements. I'd like to see that. I might take that up myself.
Yeah,
you could probably take a crack at that. It's probably tens of thousands of dollars, I would bet.
I believe that's the new American dream, is that you become a commodity.
Well, again, it's like, if you're not going to take care of my data, I'll take care of it myself. And that's really the point. It's like, I want the paradigm to shift where it's like, the paradigm right now is fundamentally broken. I give you access to my data in exchange for this menial value. And you treat my data absolutely reprehensibly, recklessly.
You trade it to people in dark alleys. You trade it with people on Wall Street. Yeah, it's pretty bad. We do have some healthcare coverage, right? So like the healthcare side is at least monitored in HIPAA and PII, and then even the AI models, right? So if you use Azure, they have skills based in there that will actually give you the ability to remove PII very quickly. And so there's some cool features there. So it's being thought of, at least when it comes to healthcare.
Well, because you're right, because the government stepped in and said, this is how it's going to be. You might not like it, but this is how it's going to be. It created a lot of jobs.
It sure did. A lot of watchdog groups. There's definitely more people out there. Yeah, a lot of paper pushers.
Yeah. Data governance, right? The data governance crowd. It's good.
Quality assurance.
It's a job. It's illegal. We're solving problems left and right. We're coming up with a whole new employment opportunity. And,
paradigm shifts.
It's a paradigm shift. Well, this has been great. We have covered open versus closed AI. We've covered digital currencies and the future of blockchain, and now we
very high level. Sorry for all those people that might yell.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. please, if you know this stuff,
don't kill the messenger
at the molecular level, please. Well, I mean, write us and tell us what you'd like us to talk about. Suggest some guests. We're happy to
help us get it right.
Happy to get into it. But lots more to talk about. But I think that's all we have time for today.
Sounds good. All right, Doug, next time.
All right, Doug, thanks.